So today we're going to talk about emotions during conflict.
It's a very important subject um, because a large part of spiritual life is dealing with emotions. And ultimately, in the highest sense, we want to have loving emotions and feelings towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, and his devotees. So that is the perfection of emotion. And in this material world, also, we experience all kinds of emotions. And in the Greek language, the root of the word emotion actually meant to set something in motion. So the purpose of emotions are actually to give us an indication of some direction that we're supposed to take. And if we properly take those directions from that emotion in the highest spiritual sense, then we advance in our Krishna consciousness and in our journey towards Krishna. So managing emotion and understanding emotions it's very, very important. And I'd just like to say one thing more. How in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, it's described how in Kali Yuga, the people of Kali Yuga are less fortunate. It's described they're short-lived,
Always disturbed.
very unlucky, and it's described how the finer sentiments of man becomes lost. And in the study of the English language, over time, it has been observed that the usage of the different words for different emotions has been very much reduced. And in the present era we're living in now, the emotions that are verbalized are very, very few. Generally, it's anger. I'm angry. I'm greedy. I'm lusty. But sometimes one might feel something that evokes a sense of anger, but because our finer sentiments have been lost, if one could actually just step back for a moment and examine the situation and look a little deeper into one's feelings, one would often observe that, well, I'm not really angry. Maybe I'm just a little frustrated or annoyed. So being frustrated and being annoyed is a lot different than being angry. But because we tend to be very short-fused in the age of Kali Yuga, we tend to jump immediately to the most gross emotions. And that is extremely unproductive in relationships, in dealing with challenges and conflicts.
So one of the reasons that it's very unproductive is because if I just pretend, here, maybe this hand, just pretend that this is my brain. Okay. It even kind of, looks like my head. So this is my brain stem, and here's the lower part of my brain. And this is my limbic system, this thumb. It got my amygdala and my hippo, whatever it's called, all those things of your limbic system in there. And this part of your brain, it allows you to breathe, keeps your heart pumping. This part of your brain, it manages your emotions. So when your emotions get very high, you depend on your cortex, the thinking part of your brain, and the rational part of your brain to come in and tell you what to do. And especially your fingertips here. This is your prefrontal cortex. this is what really helps you to rationalize things, to evaluate and detect how I should respond to that anger. Is it really terrible anger, or is it just frustration? Is there something I can do about it? But what happens when your emotions get high, all of a sudden you flip your lid and you don't have access to evaluating and detecting what you should do. So we see this very often in children. In fact, in English, we even call it, oh, they flipped their lid. Or my mom flips her lid when we would get angry. Right? And that's exactly what's happening. So we see this all the time in children. In fact, the prefrontal cortex here, it is not fully developed until one's 25. So children, they don't have all of the connected pathways or the practice to regulate and deal with their emotions. So that's when, as parents, we need to come in and help them. And usually one of the best ways to help a child, manage their big emotions, which come in here, and help them to manage them, is to, give them a hug, make them feel safe. Because this part of your brain detects when things don't feel safe and they don't feel comfortable. So they're starting to be very verbal. So the first thing you need to do is to give your child a hug, help them calm down, and then instead of trying to criticize them or blame them, take some calm time to try to reflect on what you can do to help them succeed in what they need to be doing, because they're not able to access that at the moment. So when it comes to adults, we do the same thing too. I can get upset. My husband didn't do something the way I thought he should, and I'm starting to get upset, and he's responding in such a way that I don't feel heard. Then I start to get more upset. He's getting upset because I'm getting upset. He's maybe starting to talk louder. I don't feel safe. I'm not getting what I need. And I flip my lid. Then I can say something very damaging. My husband can flip his lid. He can say, "Why are you even here?" I can say, "Okay, I'll leave," and then I can take, the kid and storm off to my friends. Over what? The dishes weren't put away properly. You can go from the dishes not being put away properly to, taking the kid and going to your friend's house in about, 20 minutes flat. So we need to understand what's happening. That when our big feelings part of the brain starts activating, it sends this cortisol to our upstairs brain and we get flooded. We just can't think. We actually can't access it. So that is really important to understand, because often we see that when couples get into conflict and the emotions get high, they want an instant fix. If one partner says, I can't deal with this right now, and they go off, the other person can get frantic, feel abandoned, demand them to stay, when they sort of know that it's just the wrong time to deal with this. So this is something that we need to plan for ahead of time. Just like fire drills. You don't practice how to get out of the building when the fire starts to burn. You have a plan. So it's very beneficial when couples can sit down and discuss what they need when their emotions get high. So if one of them says, I need some space, in order to go away and regroup and calm and, think better. And the other person can understand that they're not neglecting them, that it's not that they don't want to deal with it. It's just that they want to choose the best time to deal with something. So it's very, very conducive that couples realize that nothing good is going to happen when their emotions are escalated. And so it's very, very good to come up with a hand signal, I'm flipping my lid, whatever works for you. A funny word, babushka, whatever it is. Just have your fire escape planned.
And it's a very important point. We have a nice example in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 4th canto, in the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj. His brother had been killed by a yaksha, and Dhruva Maharaj, he became very, very angry, and he attacked the kingdom of the yakshas, and he began to slay hundreds and thousands of yakshas. And he was very, very angry. And he was killing so many yakshas, Swayambhuva Manu actually had to come and descend before him and give him good instruction. And he told Dhruva Maharaj that you should control your anger.
He said, anger is the foremost enemy of self-realization.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he told him.
And we all can practically observe at moments when we do become angry, those are the moments when you tend to commit Vaishnav aparad. When you're either angry at someone or envious of someone, you might say and do absolutely the wrong things. So anger can be a great impediment to spiritual life. And Srila Prabhupada, he also describes in that section of the Bhagavatam how a saintly person never exhibits anger. Saintly persons are free from anger. And at the same time, it's described in the 1st canto how these different kinds of emotions, like anger and affection for others, are natural, and they cannot be annihilated. So anger and affection, they're emotions, they're neither good nor bad. It's how we respond to those emotions and how we deal with them that determines whether our thoughts and activities in relationship with that emotion are constructive or unconstructive. So with anger, we actually see examples of great devotees becoming angry. Hanuman exhibited his anger to fight against Ravana. Arjuna spoke Bhagavad Gita to incite Arjuna to engage in this great battle at Kurukshetra. So anger can be used in Krishna's service, but we have to be very careful in how we exhibit our anger to see that it's actually being used for the pleasure and service of Lord Krishna, and that our anger is not simply a manifestation of our frustrations. And the symptom that our anger is not on a spiritual platform will be that if our pulse increases, Srila Prabhupada describes this as something he calls the Rudra principle, that when you become angry in the modes of passion and ignorance, the body tends to become very tight. Sometimes you hear about the fight or flight modes. And so the fight mode is that mode of ignorance. You clench your fists, your chest becomes tight, your breathing might become a little quick. And also when one is in this this kind of Rudra mode of anger, that anger locks itself within one's body for quite a time. And so one will be tense for a long time. And as Uttama was saying, that if one begins to feel this kind of anger, it's important one should remove himself from the situation and de-escalate. And in terms of the workings of our body, that kind of anger, as Uttama was saying, it releases this cortisol hormone within the body that actually pollutes one's ability to think clearly. And one says and does absolutely the wrong things. So again, it's very important if one develops that kind of Rudra anger in the mode of ignorance, that one needs to step aside for some time, at least 20 minutes, and de-escalate, to come back to more of a mode of goodness. And at the same time, anger can be used in Krishna by someone who's extremely elevated. And it's described how a saintly person, sometimes they will exhibit anger, but their anger can be like a thunderbolt. And the next minute will be soft, the person will be as soft as a rose. Whereas in the modes of passion and ignorance, with this Rudra principle, you become hard as a thunderbolt for a long time, and for some time after, you will be irritated and very unsettled. So that's important to analyze what is the nature of our anger. And also it's very important to realize that, as Prabhupada said, these emotions need to be engaged in Krishna's service. So you actually need to question that, are my emotions at this time pleasing to Krishna? Can you honestly say, if you're feeling angry, is this emotion at this specific instance in time and circumstance, is this going to be pleasing to Krishna? And am I actually remembering that my spouse is a devotee of Krishna, and Krishna's in their heart and my heart, and Krishna is witnessing all this?
And even if your partner is not a devotee, Krishna is still in their heart, and you must act as a devotee and treat them well. So at best, maybe your cortisol will come down and enable your thinking part of the brain to activate, maybe not. You have to be introspective and honest. And during those times when we are trying to reconnect with the well-functioning thinking part of our brain, we need to moderate and control our own minds also by not rethinking the situation, not rehashing it, not thinking how I was wronged. Do something completely different. Sing the Hare Krishna mantra at the top of your lungs. Go for a walk. Do something else. Don't think about how you were wronged. Just get in a calm state where you can actually feel connected with Krishna. Then pray to Krishna for some help on what can make the situation better. Then when we come back together, the first thing we need to do is reconnect. Because when you feel connected, either with your child feeling connected with you feeling connected with your partner, that connected state helps you feel calm and safe. Then this wild part of your brain doesn't have to be like, hey, look after me, I'm not safe, it's not about me. It can relax and we can properly think. So when we feel connected, then we will be able to figure out some proactive ways to deal with the situation. So it's not a matter of there being some set way to deal with it, but Krishna will give us the intelligence when we're in that right place for the best thing to do. So it's very important to understand that Rudra principle is very much governed by our false ego. So we can see that it's just not going to be productive. In that way of thinking where the false ego is predominating, it's all about me, how I was wronged, and we tend to be judgmental of the other person. Those things are not very useful for either reconnecting in a loving way, nor is it very useful on trying to find a solution that will work. Because instead we're trying to punish or correct our child, getting them to teach them a lesson. Those things don't actually move us forward. By figuring out the best thing to do, we will move forward. And then the lesson's taught. So those things happen automatically when we learn how to act in the mode of goodness. So basically, when we're acting with our rational thinking, caring about another person, part of the brain, we're responding from the mode of goodness. When we're just flipping our lid, we're probably responding from the mode of passion. And when we're just completely shutting down, not dealing with something, avoiding, we're acting from the mode of ignorance. So a big part of advancing in Krishna consciousness is learning how to keep all of our actions in the mode of goodness so that we can elevate ourselves to pure goodness, where everything is automatically done for the pleasure of Krishna. And that's the result of advancing in Krishna consciousness. It has to be practically seen and demonstrated in our moment-to-moment living.
And one thing that individuals can do if they have problems with anger is to develop a larger vocabulary of emotions, because generally the usage of emotions, as I said, it's become limited. And it's very difficult to control emotions if you don't actually really know what they are. And if you can give a name to your emotion, that immediately makes it easier
To tame.
To tame, yeah. And if you continually tend to jump to the emotion of anger, that's the hardest one to tame. But if you can be a little introspective and thoughtful and realize, well, maybe I'm just frustrated. Maybe if you're a man, maybe you're just hungry. If you can examine what that emotion is and give it a name, it does become easier to tame. One devotee at Sarnagadi.
And then you can head for the fridge instead.
One Mataji at Sarnagati, she has a young boy who is a little emotionally challenged. And to help him, she wrote the names of all kinds of different emotions on different colored papers and stuck them on a refrigerator.
And he helps her to find different ones and draw the appropriate facial expression.
And it's actually helped him quite remarkably in dealing with his emotions. And so again, emotions are something spiritual. They're not, Prabhupada said they're not to be annihilated, but they are to be utilized in Krishna's service and controlled properly. Then our emotions can become our friend. Just like one emotion is, you feel pain. Some pain in my foot, I stepped on a thorn. So that emotion of feeling that pain is an indicator I need to address that pain and pull out the thorn. If I don't properly deal with that emotion or pay attention to that emotion, that little thorn could become infected and cause a big problem. So in the same way in our lives, we're continually experiencing different emotions. And if we do not deal with them properly, they can create infections, especially the emotion of anger. It can be very infectious and be very detrimental to relationships.
So we're all in the same boat. When we get angry, we flip our lids and we can't think. It's just the way the body works. So we need to just be proactive, not be hard on ourselves, understand what's happening, and take the break, self-soothe, think of a good game plan, come back and reconnect, and proactively discuss with your child or your partner what to do. Now, for parents, you cannot help your child manage their emotions when you have also flipped your lid. Because what happens is your kid starts freaking out, then your brain's going, oh my gosh, another temper tantrum. And you start flipping your lid, thinking, oh my gosh, I got to deal with this again. How am I going to deal with my kid? So, not going to be very productive, because your child, what do they call it? When you
emotional connection.
No. Well, yes, you have this emotional connection. So your kid's going to be reading your flipped outness, and he's going to be escalating more. And, you're going to co-regulate, because children manage their emotions by being co-regulated. That co-regulated means together. As you feel calm, then your child can feel calm. So it was very interesting. I was watching a parenting tip seminar, and they were describing when you see your children freaking out and you start getting also freaked out. She says, out loud, say to your child, I'm feeling a little reactive right now. I am going to count to 3. She says, and then do it right in front of your child. It teaches your child also how they can do it. So she says, you count to 3. And when you count to 3, you go 1, and usually the 1 doesn't sound too good. So that's pretty normal. She says, when you do then take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. When you breathe out for a long time, that can really help relax your stress. So a good outward breath. When you say number 2, put your hand on your heart. 2, another big breath. And then 3, keep your hand on your heart and close your eyes. Another big breath. 3. And you'll find that you're much more relaxed. Then your child will see you're relaxed, and they can start to calm down. And then from that relaxed state, you can see, what can we do? And even discuss it with your child. What would you need to feel better right now? They won't be able to think about that in the beginning. You have to give them the hug, have them sit quietly. You see, we make this mistake. We think that everything needs to be dealt with this second. No kid's going to die if he has a tantrum for, 10 more seconds. Let them do their tantrum. Get yourself in a calm space. Then see how you can deal with it. So it's very important that as parents, we do help our children to manage their emotions, because that's how they will forge those pathways in which to be able to regulate their emotions and be a well-adjusted, happy, productive adult. But it's never too late. We can teach ourselves, and by practicing, we can get better at managing our emotions, at regulating our emotions, at taking the break so we can figure out how to regulate our emotions, and how to be proactive and respond in more mode of goodness, productive, Krishna conscious ways.
And in that consciousness, we will be able to deal with these kinds of very strong emotions in constructive, non-confrontational ways.
Should we end here?
Yeah. So thank you very much. If there's any questions, we'll take questions here. If not, we can.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful, very thoughtful. I have a question. If we know that we are not very good at controlling our emotions. But at the same time, we do not make this conscious effort. We do not apply any effort in rectifying it or working on it. We just chant our japa and think that by chanting japa, we will, little by little get better, or whether maybe it will go away. Isn't this a seventh offense when you do some not very good activities, hoping that chanting of Maha Mantra will rectify it?
So we belong to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And consciousness means being conscious. And like you say, sometimes we're not so conscious of our feelings, our actions, our responses. And as you say, we can perform the activities of Krishna consciousness in a very rote, mechanical way. And any contact with Krishna helps one advance. So even if you chant, as you say, with offense, eventually you'll become offenseless, but it may take a long, long time. But if we can become conscious to try to avoid those offenses, then we can actually make tangible, rapid advancement. So that actually lies with our choice in our actions, in our responses, from year to year, month to month, week to week, day to day, hour to hour, moment to moment. So every moment we have the opportunity to make a conscious choice that's going to help us best progress in Krishna consciousness. And we should always try to weigh that what choice am I going to make at this moment, in how I respond, in how I think, in how I act. And it's a lot of work. But as Prabhupada said, how success is assured for the rigid practitioner. And so we need to remember that our practice, wherever we are, grihastas, sannyasis, vanapras, brahmachari, mother, father, we're all trying to control our minds and think of Krishna. And that needs to be at the forefront.
So if you were angry and you thought the Hare Krishna mantra will just do everything, then take a pause, chant Hare Krishna, and focus, and maybe pray, Krishna, what should I do next? And then you actually have to listen instead of just wanting Krishna to do all the work, because he probably is telling you, and maybe you're not listening. You see, the only difference between a pure devotee and Krishna, a pure devotee and us, is one thing. Krishna is in our heart. Krishna is in the heart of the pure devotee. When Krishna in the heart of the pure devotee speaks, the pure devotee listens. We don't always listen. So that also says that if we maybe started to listen, we could become pure devotees. Now that listening in the beginning is hard to hear because we can't distinguish that from our mind. So therefore, we take guidance from pure devotees, advancing devotees, the scriptures, spiritual master, like that. And then we understand how to behave.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I would definitely prefer a faster way than a very, very long way. because you know it's not easy to live in the material world, but you probably know. So I think that are all questions that we have so far. We're so grateful to you for your wonderful association and kindness and the knowledge that you share with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
May you have a peaceful day.
Yes.